Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. It is always much appreciated when you tune in. Today, it's just me and you. I'm going to wrap up rounds 2 and 3 for the Commanders, and they took Jartavius Martin, defensive back from Illinois in round 2, and they took center Ricky Stromberg, center/guard from Arkansas, mostly center, but has played guard as well. So I'm going to wrap up both these guys. They do have 5 more picks on day 3. So they have 1 in the 4th and 5th, 2 in the 6th, and 1 more in the 7th. So we'll wrap all that up on Saturday night and bring you all that information. Let's start with round 2 and Jartavius, and he goes by Quan. So Quan Martin, who plays corner and safety. And I say corner, it's more about the slot position as well. So before I go to that, I will say I knew on Friday morning there was a guy that they really liked, that they wanted to get, and they weren't going to, they're not going to tell you who it is, but I knew it was somebody that they considered moving up for because they were afraid that he wouldn't be there when they picked. This is the guy. Now, I thought it might be one of his teammates, Sidney Brown, a safety, who I think is really good. And, I think that was a guy on the list. And you also looked at guys like Steve Avila, offensive lineman from TCU. He was gone. Matthew Bergeron, offensive lineman from Syracuse. He was gone. And then this is the guy, though, that I was told later that, yes, this is the guy that they were targeting because of that versatility. So with Martin, he can also play the Buffalo nickel. But he does that. He can do that from a corner, like more so like if they go to a 3-corner set, they can use him in that role. Now, he can also stay on the field in a 3 safety set as well. So he gives you a lot of versatility, but he can play in that role. And that, as I've been telling you, was something that they wanted to get. One of the things that they really like about him, again, that versatility. And to be able to be that versatile and to play like that in the NFL, you have to be very smart. And so you have to start there. But he also plays physical. And I think that's another thing that's attractive about him. An explosive player, 44-inch vertical leap, ran the 40, I think it was like in 4.45, 4.46, 40-yard dash. So he's got that explosiveness that you need. His man coverage skills are probably a little bit inconsistent. There were times when I watched him where he's really good in coverage, and he had some makeup speed in certain routes. And other times he's biting on double moves and getting beat. But what you'd also see is sometimes at the top of a route, maybe a guy can drive him off just a little bit, create a little bit of separation, and then it's a matter of him getting back in the play. Not by a lot, but that was certainly something that where you noticed on film. He covered the boundary, he covered the field, and he would come up and he'd play in the slot. He played outside. What you'd see him do too, and one of the things I think that I like having guys like this in a defensive backfield is he give that versatility with him and a Cam Curl. You don't know who's going to be up in that box now, and so what that gives you is the ability to disguise coverages better. And you saw that with what he did at Illinois, because there'd be times where he's covering in the slot and it looks like it's man coverage with him over the slot, and all of a sudden he's dropping back to a deep half safety. And I think that's the kind of stuff and I think it helped Illinois' defensive backfield. There was some talent in there, folks, but I think also the ability to use that talent that way was a tremendous boost for that defense. So I think that's how he fits. He's a very good athlete. And I think all that matters. And especially the other thing too that I liked is I felt like he had good recognition on some plays, but also his communication skills. And you'd see that with some motions where he's coming across the formation, his guy's coming across formation, and it's a last second setup, but you see him before, as soon as his guy get in place, he's talking to the defensive back next to him to basically alert to what their coverage is. And if there was a need to change or anything like that. So that's something that's very important. And I like that part of his game as well. And, so I think that's pretty good. A thing I'd worry a little bit about him is just honing up some of that coverage stuff. Does he get a little bit too aggressive and biting on some of those routes? Maybe, but that's just something that I think is something to watch and see where he goes with that. I like the kid. I think he's a really good player. I did text with some people, and I know some people around the league and guys who have played felt like he's a good pick, has the post range, multidimensional, and not many defensive backs can do what they feel like he can do, and because he can match in the slot. And again, third safety in a nickel role, which is what they were looking for. So they can cross that off their list. And I know for some people, it's like two defensive backs in the first two picks, but that's what they wanted. They wanted to strengthen that backfield. Now, what does this mean for Kendall Fuller? And I think part of it is you still kind of want to see how they're going to use Martin. They're going to consider him part of a safety who can play corner and do that, or they're going to consider him part of the cornerback position. But if you're going to play him in the slot, which is it sounds like they would, then you just drafted a corner and you have Benjamin St-Juste. Where does that leave Kendall Fuller? Because you would save, I think it's $8.5 million if you released him. So that's substantial if you went that route. I was told it's too early to go down that road with him. And so I'm not going to go down that road, but this is a business. And so we all see that. I will say one of the benefits for Fuller, first of all, I know they felt like he could still play, that he still had another good year as a starter. This is the final year of his contract. I think the other value to Fuller is having him in that room because he can still play, but he's a strong veteran. Now, he's not going to be a really, really vocal guy, but the way he handles himself is a true pro. And I think those kind of guys are good to have. Now, Cam Curl does that, but I think it's good to have a longer time veteran voice in that room. But it's not going to be the only reason you keep him around. It's got to make sense. And they do need to free up money. And that's one way to do it. So just something to pay attention to. But again, told it's too early to go down that road. And I think some of it is make a plan for how you're going to use these guys. And then you can determine, well, who's actually going to be, what moves can you then make correspondingly. So I think, yeah. And I know, that's about all I have to say there. Sorry. I know what I was going to say too. The other thing is, I think he did have 3 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles last year. So now you've added 2 guys who did a pretty good job either taking the ball away or creating a turnover. And I can't harp enough on the turnover ratio. That's a big part of the discussion of what I've heard over the last couple of days after adding Emmanuel Forbes and then after getting Martin, is that desire to change the games. And, everybody want to add offense, and we all know that. And they did go get a guy in the 3rd round. But another way to help this offense is by taking the ball away and putting them in a better position, giving them more chances, giving them better field position to do something with it. And I think that combined with an offense that needs to take better care of the ball, and will they do that with Sam Howell as opposed to Taylor Heineke? That was a knock on Heineke. That would also be a big help. So if you have couple fewer turnovers on offense and you create a few more on defense, suddenly that could get you a couple more wins. Because that's probably the most important stat in the NFL when you talk to coaches. That's the stat they're always going to talk about after a game. You lose a turnover, you win it. That's usually going to dictate what your success for that day. So that he gives them another guy who can do that, or at least has shown that ability in college. So
the adventure park is ziplining through the trees. It's climbing from platform to platform. It's even an axe throwing competition with your friends. But what the adventure park really is opportunity. Reconnecting with friends and family, accomplishing a challenge, and making lasting memories. So book your visit today and choose your own adventure.
There you go. That's on Martin. Let's talk about Ricky Stromberg. So a couple things. There were a lot of guys that I liked that were off the board by the time they picked in the 3rd round. The running back from Texas A&M, Devin Achane, and then he was a guy like Henley, the linebacker from Washington State. Those guys went back to back, liked them both. I didn't think they'd take a linebacker there after taking defensive players in the first 2 picks. But I was thinking that if A-Chain was there, I thought they might go there. And I say that because I know they like Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Alabama. He was definitely on their radar. If he had gotten into the 2nd round, I think that's a guy that they would have seriously looked at. So when you looked at that, I looked at traits. A-Chain has some of those same traits, speed, some of that wiggle, a little bit of some elusiveness there. So, but he was gone. So they didn't go there. They did add some offenses. I know people wanted to add some offense, and I agree with you. I think they had to get an offensive lineman. I just didn't know where they would get it because I was told Friday morning they didn't feel like they had to get one in rounds 2 or 3. They knew they were going to address it, but they didn't think they had to get that. So it had to be a guy that they liked. And I knew, for example, I know the Ohio State tackle DeJuan Jones was on the board at that time. And I'm an Ohio State guy. I think he was a good college player, but I knew the one thing that they wanted, if you're going to draft a tackle, someone like that, they want that someone who can, if you're a tackle, they want you to be able to play guard as well. A lot of teams have gone that way. So if you're a center, they want you to be able to play guard. Guard, they want you to be able to play center. If you're really, really that much better, then I think you can certainly, you're not going to bypass a guy in the first round, for example, if all he is a left tackle, because guess what? You kind of need that. But if you're a guy that's, kind of in certain position, certain spot with how they view you as a prospect, well, then you better be able to help in multiple spots because it just gives you more ability. Because what if you come in and DeJuan Jones is struggling at right tackle? Maybe Wiley's better there. Then what do you do with DeJuan Jones? So with, that they just want, Brandon Sheriff came in as a right tackle, really struggled there. A different group, but they pushed him to guard. So that's why they want some of that versatility. But it's why DeJuan Jones was not going to be a guy that was coming here. So, all right. But with Stromberg, what you get is a guy who can play, who's an accomplished center, won some awards at center, very good center, but also can play guard. And so I think it gives them that flexibility because Nick Gates is more than likely going to be the center unless Stromberg just comes in and just blows it away. But it seems like Gates has that they'd like him to be the center. And so with Stromberg, it's just going to matter of could he play guard as well? And then could he compete there? And I know the way they view their first couple picks. First round pick, you come in and start. Second round pick, you need to come in and you should come in and start. Third round pick is a guy that you work toward that starting role. And so you're not necessarily an instant starter, but a guy that's certainly within a year you should be starting. So that's how I would look at it with him. And it just gives them more young depth up front. That's what they needed. I don't think they're done with that line. I wouldn't be shocked if they take another guy on Saturday just to continue bolstering that front. They did add Andrew Wiley. They've added 3 guys on the line this offseason, but 2 starters, Wiley and Gates. And so that's, they have addressed it, but the left guard spot is still the one area where you say, what's going to happen there? And again, it could be one of these guys we just named, whether it's Stromberg, or is it going to be Sadiq Charles or Chris Paul? Andrew Norwell still on the roster. Again, I would expect that at some point he'll be gone. I would also say with Chase Rouillet, it's hard to see him coming back. Now, I don't see where he fits because you got Gates, you got Stromberg, you also have Tyler Larson, who's a cheaper backup. So, I don't know why something hasn't been resolved there, but I would guess after this that now the next thing you see you're going to start to see moves after the draft ends and give these guys a chance to go on. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think we can all see the writing on the wall there. So with Stromberg, again, he has really good play strength, and I think that's what they want. Good run blocker. I think he works to the second level pretty well. So that's going to be good for what they want to do. I think he can block in a zone scheme and a gap scheme. And I think that's good. I also think that he was one of the more fun guys to talk to. This guy was fired up when we talked to him. We do a Zoom interview session with these guys after they get picked. And he said at one point, I'm so fired up, I'm shaky. He was that excited. He loved coming here on his visit. He liked coming to Virginia. He believe it or not, he even said he liked the facility. I think he liked, but I think it was just because the vibe he got while he was here he met a lot with Martin Mayhew. He spent a lot of time with Travell Wharton, who, by the way, eventually will be there. As I've told you before, he's going to be their O-line coach at some point, but they're going to wait until the ownership situation is settled before he gets that title. And I think it's just because of such a big move. They want to make sure the new owner is knows about it or whatever, but he's going to be the O-line coach. So he and Stromberg spent a lot of time together. That really resonated with Stromberg. He felt like they really clicked. Rivera was able to spend some time with him, but I think he really liked his visit. And so that really helped. The funny thing is too, and Rivera told the story before we started the press conference with he and Martin Mayhew, that they called Stromberg. They went to call him, and they actually got a wrong number at first. And so they had, while Rivera was on the phone with someone who said he's got the wrong number, Mayhew was contacting Stromberg's agents to get his right number. I think what had happened is he had changed phones, and there was an issue with that because of that number, and it went to a different phone when they called. And so they actually ended up getting Stromberg's dad on the phone, that's who they ended up calling, who then gives the phone to his son to have him hear that he's been drafted by the Commander. So yeah, I think it's really hard to say, is this a good draft so far, is a bad draft? You got to see how it plays out. We have to see, what does Emmanuel Forbes do? Quan Martin, I think they're both can be really good players. So that could make it a good draft. Stromberg, I think, could be a good center. That would make it a good draft. But I think what I would never do is overreact to picks. I've never done that. I think it's silly because we don't know how these guys are going to fit or what they're going to do. And I also want to see what they do on day 3, because they do have still some remaining needs. They would like to get they need to get another linebacker. They want to get a running back. And so I think those are 2 primary spots. I think I wouldn't be shocked about another offensive lineman, maybe a tight end, a defensive end. I think is another spot where I would look to see them add another player, and go from there. So there you go. That's it. That's the wrap on day 2, and appreciate you tuning in. I'll be back with another one after the final rounds on Saturday night. And don't forget, I did do a first round wrap up with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, talking about Emmanuel Forbes. Went over a lot of stuff with him. And so go tune on that. Go listen to that one. And apologize if I'm putting you to sleep, but man, I'm a little bit tired because it's a little bit late. So I'll talk to you next time.